Greetings, beloved Star Child Rising. You are in Christina's Corner, and I'm Christina. Welcome back to the podcast where I have the opportunity and the honor to highlight and celebrate individuals who are out here leveraging their gifts, their talents, and their skills to make a positive impact on the world. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Bria Cherelle Barnes-Coleman. Bria is a true force in the education world, a charismatic educator, and an inquisitive lifelong learner dedicated to building networks and driving change. With a decade of experience spanning K through 12 and higher education, Bria has a remarkable ability to increase belonging and cultivate intentional community ties across every institution she touches. From teaching large classrooms to serving as an assistant head of school for community, equity, and belonging, and now as the director of the Women's Leadership Initiative and Community Engagement at Albany Law, Bria consistently excels in bringing people together. That's what she does. She's also an award-winning faculty member, a published author, and an educator mentor, deeply committed to empowering the voices of others while amplifying her own. And I'm not finished. Beyond her professional roles, Bria walks the talk, serving as the board chair for Girls Inc. of the Capital Region, on the advisory board for Garden State Women, and giving back to her undergraduate alma mater with an endowed scholarship. Her connections are truly long-lasting and worthwhile. I'll share Bria's contact information if you want to reach out to her in the video description. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation. Welcome, Bria.
Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm just so glad that you're here. Um, So, Bria, what I do is I come up with six questions. And the first one is always to ask you to take us back to your childhood. What were you like as a kid? And did you have any clues back then that you were going to be the passionate change maker that you are today?
I love this question. As I think about what I was like growing up, I see pictures in my head. So growing up, my dad was always the photographer, the family photographer, the church photographer. And so I think about I think about me as a kid in photos. So think lots of bright patterns and lots of cheetah print. Um, I think when I think back to my childhood, I also think about how supported I felt. I'm very, very grateful to my parents who were super supportive. And so I had a huge village of family and friends and church family, who surrounded me from the moment I was born. And so I always felt encouraged, and that really built my confidence and made me feel like despite what anyone said, or what the world may have thought around me, I could do anything that I wanted to.
Mm.
Um, and I will also say, growing up as a pastor's granddaughter, some of those formative lessons in church, they just never leave. So for example, just understanding decorum. It makes me think about my grandmother and the hats that she would wear every Sunday, and the way that she would sit in the chair, her posture, right? I am the product of so many who've come before me and who have poured into me and loved me. It makes me think about public speaking. Growing up in church, you were, memorizing poems for Easter and Black History Month. You also was instilled in me to be proud of my culture.
Hmm.
As early as I was able to speak and memorize a poem, you were standing up there and you were reciting. Harriet Tubman didn't take no stuff, wasn't scared of nothing either. Didn't come in this world to be no slave, and didn't stay one either. That last part, my mother made me remember. I was 7 years old. I will never forget that poem. So it just makes me, I definitely have to give the credit to my family, and that includes
Yeah.
friends and church family. And so just people pouring into me and saying, you can do it. You can be your fully authentic self, and that's okay. Um, and so the change maker I am today. I don't think I knew that I was a change maker. I was voted funniest girl in high school. It doesn't sound like she's changing anything. Maybe somebody's mood. And then what really stands out in my mind is when um I was in college. I was actually a nursing major, and I realized I wasn't passionate about what I was learning. And so I took a summer job working for AmeriCorps because they would help offset some of my college tuition. And I took the job as a volunteer teacher, and so I was paid sort of in a scholarship that would later take that money off of my tuition. And so I would gas up my 1987 Chevy Nova with one mirror because you didn't need both until 88, apparently. So I would gas up this Chevy Nova and I would fill it with bins of science materials and all kinds of construction paper and pens and markers and tubing and cars. And I would go to 10 different locations, so two different places a day across Union County. And that was summer camps and churches and nonprofits, community centers. And so it'd be me and those bins coming in for the 8:30 session at Agape, then taking it to the Rawway Community Center to start for 1 o'clock. And it was an experience that truly changed me and showed me that there was a love and a passion for teaching, and that there was something more than just helping a child understand, a particular concept. It was more than the content. It was about representation. It was about connection. It was about community, because I was also going into places that I knew and places that I'd never been. And so really now having those memories and those connections to those spaces and those kids and those camp counselors is something really special, because I think it made me fall in love with the power of
Mm,
community.
okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. It's very obvious in your sense of vibrancy and your enthusiasm just when you communicate that there was a lot of love in your
Mm.
life. And so thank you for sharing that. That was a very heartwarming story. And I see how you got your tie or your found your calling in education. But that being said, to work for AmeriCorps and for education and finding your calling and knowing that you want to make a change or impact and help children, there's a there's a pretty steep learning curve when you step into your own classroom, right? When you have to bring all of that in and then manage a whole lot of other stuffs. As an educator, you know what I'm talking about. So how did you transition from that to being in your own classroom? And what was that like? What were some of the challenges and celebrations you had?
I love that. What were some of the challenges and the celebrations?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, a learning curve is truly a beautiful euphemism. It is a rocky road, and I think a cold realization for first year teachers. It was for me. Even having had those 2 summers I actually worked for AmeriCorps. It was low stakes, right? It was fun. The kids were excited. It was low stakes.
Right.
I transitioned after college into my first year teaching in a public school.
Mm.
And it was in the city right next to where I grew up. And so it was in a place that I knew. I was super excited, but it was nothing in comparison. Because when that first day of school, the bell rings and the door closes, it was it was me and 28 kids. And that was just first period. So it was sixth grade also. So I was teaching sixth grade English. So middle school is a beautiful place and a crunchy place. So that I'll also add to the mix. And so what I definitely will say is that it was hard, because the stakes are very different. Particularly in teaching in public school, the focus was, shifted, right, to student progress, student ability to excel and succeed on standardized testing.
Right.
Um, the focus was less on joy. And I guess that might sound terrible, but in truth, right, when the focus and funding are all attached, it can get tricky. When I want to make a song and a dance for the students to understand the story plot line, and we're all excited and we're singing because we're getting to the climax of the story, and the principal walks in and says, Barnes, what are you doing? This isn't rigorous, right? This
Right,
isn't
right,
going to
right.
meet that standard that's on the board. And it really, that was hard,
Mm.
to realize that while my students who may have been, behind the benchmarks that they should have been for a number of factors, in that moment, they were enjoying what they were learning. And that was what was important to me. But as a first year teacher, that was all that I knew, right? Well, they're happy. Isn't that all that matters? No, it's not. Unfortunately, not. Um, and then and then evaluations roll in, right? And then student progress is a major piece of it. And sort of working through some of the barriers that come with, um, really digging into all that comes into teaching. It's more than just what happens in your classroom, right? It's parent involvement. It's the resources that are available. And so it was a major wake-up call. Um, and I definitely had a moment where I was underneath my desk with a stack of essays about Esmeralda, Esperanza Rising. I'll never forget Esperanza Rising. I had a stack of essays to grade, and I sat underneath my desk and just kept telling myself, greater is he that is within me. God help me, because what am I doing here? And so I think, to your point, it was a stiff learning curve, but I'm glad that I stuck it out, because then I ended up moving to a different school in the independent school space and learning so much more about myself and exploring pedagogy in a very different way, and learning different forms of classroom management and expanding sort of how I saw myself as an English teacher in the middle school space and then on to high school. So it was a journey.
Yeah. And one of the things that we have in common is I started off in middle school as well. And it's something about that environment, the middle
Yeah.
school child, you have to learn really quick, very quickly, that you have to connect with those
Yes,
students. And once you start to connect with them and you learn them and you earn their respect, and you are able to co-create the climate of the classroom together, you can
yeah,
have that fun and you can still
absolutely.
get through the, curriculum. And it makes you want to stay to see the growth of those children, right? So I know I sound just like a middle school teacher, but I love
They
that
are a
age.
special group. If
Yes,
you
they
love middle
are.
school, right? It's like a love or you just detest it. But you're so right. The middle school space is it's such a vulnerable and also very volatile space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they are exploring themselves and questioning so many things and curious about so many things, but they're also
Yeah.
so young. And so I do miss those moments for sure. I miss teaching lessons and telling the students, if my shoes are off, your shoes are off. And that was their favorite thing. Now everybody's in. The only rule was if we started to smell a little something, we all had to put our shoes back on.
That's funny. Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go to number three. So
Okay.
you've spoken about, Bria, about your belief in cultivating intentional community ties and increasing belonging across institutions. In today's polarized climate, creating spaces where everyone truly feels valued and connecting can be challenging. Can you share a specific example of how you've successfully fostered intentional community in a setting where it might have been difficult, and what core principles guide you in building bridges and deepening connections? Because you do that so well.
I mean, your questions are great. Oh my gosh.
Thanks.
Okay, so as I think about this question, um, an experience that comes to mind was truly formative to my my experience here in the capital region. So when I first moved here, I think a couple weeks ago would have made it 3 years. Um, when I first moved here, I was really interested in this organization. I happened to see them on the news. What is Girls Inc? I'd never heard of Girls Inc.
Mm,
And so, fast forward a year, I've now joined the board. I've been on the board for a year. I'm growing my understanding on what it means to be a board member, how things work in the capital region, but I'm still very new here. Um, and so while being a part of the board, it's asked of me to sort of step into a leadership role um, as the vice chair. And I thought, okay, I think I could do that. All right. And a part of me knew that board chair was coming down the line, but in truth, when the day came, I realized there is a task before me, because not only am I this Jersey girl in the capital region, now stepping into this role for an organization that has done so much for the capital region for
hmm
decades, to now run the board. How am I going to do this? Especially when there were a number of people on the board who've been active participants with Girls Inc. for quite a long time, longer than I had been here, that's for sure. And so I started to think about, what does that look like? How do I get this group of people who have been meeting via Zoom for years, who may not even know each other very well, if we are meeting, once a month, once every other month, to be on Zoom, and we've got meeting minutes, and then we go on from there. And it was very important to me to make sure that the board was not just, a picture of headshots, just of people who say, I care about this organization when it's time to donate. And so that was really important to me to say, if I'm going to be the board chair, it's important that our board is truly here for the right reasons.
hmm
And so I sat down with the CEO, Ashley Fragmenti. We had some really, really good conversation about what it meant to be intentional about board members. And then I took off running. So as I think about what that process was like, I think the question said, what were the core principles that sort of guided that? To really help navigate building community in a space that truly have been fragmented, just as a Zoom box would be, or a Zoom screen for a meeting. And so I started to meet with every single board member one on one to say, what's your why? Why Girls Inc? Why have you been, involved for so long? And not in a way that was like interrogating, but because I
hmm
wanted to understand.
hmm
There were a number of experiences and so many identities that were brought to the table. And so I wanted to understand, particularly for me as a Black woman, why do you choose this organization that uplifts girls who look like me? And so that was super important, just to understand. And so through making those real connections with people to understand who they are, where they grew up, where they met their spouse, how many dogs they have, helped us to build that bridge for when we then got to, down the line to have conversations in board meetings. I started to clarify what expectations meant, right? So if this is no longer what works, right? If I say, here is how we engage as board members, and it doesn't work for you, that's okay. It's perfectly fine. But if we are going to be a cohesive group, we've all got to have that shared vision, and we've got to be clear about what that is. So I wanted to make sure that there was no gray area, even when some topics are hotter than others, or some things are more contentious. No matter how polarizing the climate was, I wanted it to be clear that if you were on this board, you are truly, truly committed to inspiring girls to be strong, smart, and bold. And so just quickly, some other pieces was really focusing on building a culture of care. And so on our board meetings, if someone is missing, I'll make a habit of it to say, so and so was not here today. So if you have a personal connection, make sure that you do reach out, because it's not just about the business of the organization, but it's about the people who are pouring into it. And then ongoing learning and reflection, because I am no expert in this, and none of us are experts in the work of community building, particularly for this organization. So those pieces added together, but of course with celebration. So each year, actually tomorrow is this year, is our second annual mixer. So the board, all the board members, the leadership team, and the entire staff from the summer camp, we all get together to celebrate another job well done, so that there are no barriers, that there are no, I'm not a board member who sits on a pedestal and doesn't know the leadership team. I want to be able to walk into any of our locations and say, "Hey, Miss D, how you doing? Hey, Amari, how you doing?" I want to check in with the staff and know what's going on. I want to be able to walk in and see some of the girls and know who they are too. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think during a time where the board was coming off of really being in that COVID area or COVID sort of era, Zoom spaces sort of very separate. We all just, support in our own ways or show up. I wanted to solidify that in a unified effort moving forward. And I think that definitely could have been categorized as a polarizing moment. But here we are now, 2 years later, really happily moving forward as a board who sees each other in meetings or at Hannaford and stop and have a conversation. And I'm really proud of that because that trickles into all that we're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so meaningful and impactful when you took the time to meet with each one of those board members when usually in a board setting, that's the only place you're going to get together is, virtually. So taking the time with someone, especially like you, who has a lot on their plate,
Thank
to
you.
do that, you get to know those people. And it really shows because I follow you on social media and I see the posts of the different events that you do for Girls Inc. And I see how much fun everybody is having. And that comes from knowing who you're co-creating with, knowing those people, knowing what, and they're all laughing and it's genuine. It's not, oh, here comes the camera. Let me, put on this fake smile. It's genuine laughing and having a good time. So, thank you for doing all that you're doing for the Capital Region with the Girls Inc. That was great.
I'm happy for the opportunity.
Okay, so number 4. So, as an award-winning faculty member and now a published author, you're not just doing the work of equity and inclusion, you're also articulating and sharing it in a more expansive way. How has becoming a published author impacted your ability to empower the voices of others and amplify your own? And what message were you most eager to share through your writing?
This question I love because it challenges me. Like it makes me want to dig into writing again. So I have to be completely honest. When I co-authored, I had to show the book because once upon a time, teaching at a boarding school, apparently there's another Bria Barnes who has some steamy novels. That's not me. I didn't write those. So I want to make sure on the record. So when I co-authored this book, I was an anthropological research student in college. And so and this is one of those books that you see when you're walking around in Barnes and Noble. And so it tells the story of the city or the town, and they're typically like regionally based. So
Mm-hmm.
this one just happened to be on Prospect Park, New Jersey. And the book is filled with pictures of community centers and stores and moments. And so this project taught me the power of storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and really the value of capturing moments in photographs, because this particular story talks about how a town changed drastically in size of population and culture and diversity, and even diversity not just in people, racially or ethnically, but religiously, and how it's expanded over time. And it really showed me just the power of, again, storytelling. Because for one person, this is a book that you find on a coffee table, right? For another person, this is a story of their family, of that street that they grew up on, that store that they loved so much that no longer is in that same place on Main Street, and now the only place that they can see it is in this book. Um, and so as I think about what message, I guess, that I learned through writing is that every single person's story matters. And that bleeds into so many things. That bleeds
Mm-hmm.
into equity work. It leads
Mm-hmm.
into how we just approach so many parts of life. It's about listening. It's about appreciating. It's about valuing others. It's about empowering other people to actually share their stories.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess what college me took away from that was probably how exciting it was to see my name in print. But now sitting in this space, it just reminds me also the power of teamwork. I was one student among six students and a professor. Dr. Ron P. Verdicchio led us on this charge. We had no idea we were starting out on, and then to get to that place, I have a picture where it's me holding the stack of printed pages before they went into the publisher, with pen marks and everything, and just how excited we were that at 21, we had been a part of something so special for so many people that we didn't even know. So, storytelling is important. Tell your story unapologetically and always take pictures.
And write it down. Write it
Yeah,
down. I know we get busy, but there's something healing about um writing it down, and
absolutely.
it lives forever, you know.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I was thinking about when I started writing. I never thought I would write a book, but I've written four now, and I just got kind of addicted to it. I just love sitting down and writing. It's amazing what you can do when you have time.
Yeah.
Um, but the work that you're doing is really powerful and empowering, and you know it's not like you go to different jobs or you chair different boards and have a guidebook for upcoming board chairs to follow. So putting your book into some type of storytelling format is something that could benefit so many people who are going to come behind you.
Thank
Just
you.
uh, just just putting that out there.
Yeah.
All right. So number five, Bria. Um, as I said, I follow your work on social media, and it's clear that you live an incredibly active and passionate life, doing such meaningful work all the time, such creative energy. Sometimes I look at them, I'm like, how does she think of that? Wow, that is so great and looks like so much fun. And genuine joy. You're accomplishing so much, from receiving awards to being, correct me if I'm mistaken, but a pretty recent newlywed, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
In such a challenging time for the work that we do, how do you navigate it all with such genuine joy? And how do you stay so centered?
Mm. Oh, well, I guess I'll start with the time that we're living in is hard.
Mhm.
And so I make a conscious effort continually, like daily, to remind myself that joy is mine. And I
I
get to
love
seek
that.
joy every day.
Mhm.
I grew up with the phrase, the world didn't give it to me, and so the world can't take it away. And so I hold tight to that. Um, I have to say, yes, I guess we still kind of newlyweds. It'll be 2 years in September. That's still new. That's still a toddler
That's
baby.
very new.
Um, my husband is the greatest support system. Matthew he's all in. If I say, hey, we got to go to this gala, he's going to make sure that he's matching. He's gonna grit his teeth because he's probably tired of going to events that month, but he's gonna go and he's gonna smile and he's gonna be there. If it's a Girls Inc. event, he's gonna happily guard all the backpacks while we go to the concession stand with 30 girls. He's just all in. If we're at the law
Oh,
school, he's gonna help the students to help me pack the wagon full of things as we're heading off to an event. So I truly thank my husband because he's the reason that I came to the Capital Region. So his
I
support
remember.
is truly it's it's at the core of so much of what I'm able to do here. I'll also say that I have a village here that I didn't expect. I was nervous moving here. I didn't know anyone. How will things go? And to have met friends and have an entire church family here in Schenectady, it just it helps. People bring joy. People create joy. And so what I'm working on is finding balance for all of the um, activities, events, and programs that do bring me joy and do keep me centered. But sometimes it is exhausting. And
Hmm.
so I'm working on, and I've said to my students, they say, Bria, what do you want to be when you grow up? We were actually volunteering at Girls Inc. And so some of the law students were asking the girls, and they asked me, and I said, I want to be a woman who says no. Um, so when I think about staying centered, um, I think I am. The capital region continues to surprise me with ways that I am allowed to be involved, that the door is open to say, yes, you can help. And so when awards are, when someone says, hey, we want to give you this award, I'm shocked because it's truly work that I just wanted to do. I was happy to have the opportunity.
Hmm.
So I think receiving awards throws me off center because I wasn't expecting it and I wasn't looking for it and I was doing the work that I would do anyway. So I think the part that keeps me centered most is just the genuine joy that comes from it. There's no amount of money that brings that into my life, and it helps me to heal the wounds that the world is creating around me.
Hmm. Very cool. Very cool. And it helps to do what you love, and don't worry about learning to say no. When you come across enough things that don't bring you that joy, you'll find a way to
Yes.
say no. You'll be surprised at how easily it comes. No, thank you very much. So do you and your husband, do you have like a date night? Have you set up like every week you go out on a date or?
So, because it's just the two of us and our dog, it's very unscheduled and probably more frequent than our budget will allow. But
Okay,
yes, so
good.
we
That's good.
we we frequent quite a few places. We try to expand from our favorites. But we definitely make our way around downtown Schenectady.
Okay. And sometimes don't you double date with our girl, Dr. Bennett and
Yeah, our
Chevy?
families are great friends. Even our dogs
Yeah, you guys
are
have dogs
potentially in a
together.
relationship.
Yeah. Well, next time you see Ashley, give her a hug from me. I
Absolutely.
miss, I miss, I miss her a lot being
She is a
there.
beautiful spirit, and her
She is.
family is so warm.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have that joyful, humorous vibe, you
Yeah,
know, just a lot of love between them. I love that family a lot.
I
Okay,
do as well.
let's go to number 6, the final question.
Okay.
This has been great. Okay. So, Bria, your extensive involvement with organizations like Girls Inc., Garden State Women, along with your endowed scholarship at your alma mater, William Patterson University, It all underscores your deep commitment to supporting the next generation and empowering women. What is one personal watershed moment, if you will, or experience that solidified your dedication to this specific kind of service and giving back? And what advice would you offer to our listeners who are seeking to make a lasting impact in their own communities?
Mm, This question is so hard because, and it's a full circle moment because I'm thinking back to your first question about, you know, growing up and my childhood. And so as I tried to pinpoint one watershed moment, one transformative memory, um, I couldn't find one, but it led me to one person. So if you'll accept that,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
pivot
yeah,
my
yeah,
answer.
yeah.
So I have to give credit to my mom. Growing up, my mother, Charlene Armour Barnes, she always found ways to give, and she still does now. And so her willingness to give and to share, whether it be with the church community, with neighbors, with friends, with family, her willingness to get involved with organizations, uh, whether I wanted to be there or not, my mom was excited to be at the Girl Scout meeting, the 4-H meeting, to be at the Boys and Girls Club, right? She showed me really what it meant to be a part of the community and to dig your heels right in. She to this day is often looking for opportunities and ways to help others, to take her time and her energy and her effort to pour into other people. And so I guess it was taught to me, right? I didn't get to where I am today by myself. And so I don't lose sight of what it means to believe in community building because a community built the confidence that I have. A community built my belief in myself. Um, Today, if I think about it in this way, yesterday I needed help so that today I could help you and tomorrow you would be inspired to do that for someone else. I think about it like this cycle, and I give the credit again to my mom. And as I think about where I am now, I love the work that I'm able to do with Girls Inc. and also that I'm able to do that work on a larger scale as well at Albany Law School. I get to empower students, all students. And particularly in the fellowship program that I direct, I get to empower students to see women in leadership roles, to equip them with tools, to connect them with mentors. That is community building, that I hope continues in that same cycle, that these students are excited to work with other nonprofits, other community organizations, other schools to give back and continue that circle in the same way that it is being poured into them. So, long story short, there was no one moment, but there was definitely one person. And so I thank my mother for teaching me just how important it is to say thank you and to give grace and also to be ready to roll your sleeves up and get right in because that is what makes the difference and that's what matters.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
And so, if you wanted to give advice for somebody to how they could get um, the process they could take in giving back, like, I'm really blown away that you created an endowment for your alma mater, the school that you graduated from. So how would what advice could you give to somebody if they wanted to do something similar to that?
Questions. That is what I would start with. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to take the first step. Um, again, nothing happens. I've done nothing by myself, right? Everything has been a product of a community, of a mentor, of a process of people working together to help me get to a goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, first, start asking questions. Don't be afraid to not have the answers or to be perceived as not knowing the answers. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay. We
Mm-hmm.
all have to start
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. And I would also say, don't be afraid to just pick up the phone. I picked up the phone one day and called Girls Inc. I sent an email to the CEO and said, "Hey, how about me over here? I'd love to talk about how I can get involved." And now fast forward, and I'm super involved. So there's
Yes.
nothing stopping you.
Wow. That is so inspiring. I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you for sharing. And I know it's going to have a great impact on anybody watching our interview. So I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share and have this conversation. And I hope we'll get to do it again because I know there's going to be part two, part three, part four. I appreciate it. So, to all that are listening, love and light to you. Bye bye.